Morrison's voice sliced through the office like a blade cutting silence. I don't care how long you've been here, Emma. 1 day off in 5 years? On a busy week? You're fired. The words landed before I could process them. Keyboard stopped clicking. Coffee mugs hung frozen in midair. 20 pairs of eyes locked onto me like I was suddenly made of glass. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I refused to let it show. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comment below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had a boss who maltreats you no matter how hard you try. This journey is not a feint of heart. Follow me. Morrison wanted a reaction. He wanted tears, begging, maybe even anger. His smirk told me he'd rehearsed this moment in his head. I felt the weight of every stare drilling into my shoulders. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. But I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of him. Not in front of people I'd trained, covered for, and supported for years. I swallowed the humiliation like bitter medicine and turned slowly toward my desk. The walk felt endless. Every step echoed in the silence. Morrison crossed his arms, satisfied. He thought this was my ending. He had no idea it was just the beginning. Let me back up and introduce myself properly, since you just watched the worst public moment of my life unfold. My name is Emma Collins. I'm 27 years old, a logistics coordinator at a mid-sized supply chain company called Harmon Freight Solutions. No kids. No drama. Just work, bills, and a one-bedroom apartment I could barely afford on the edge of the city. I wasn't special. I wasn't loud. I wasn't the type to demand attention or fight for credit. I just showed up every single day and did my job better than anyone expected. For 5 straight years, I never missed a shift. Not once. Birthdays passed without celebration. Snowstorms didn't stop me. Sickness got swallowed with aspirin and coffee. I worked through holidays while others took long weekends. My attendance record was perfect. Untouched. A shining example of reliability that nobody ever bothered to acknowledge. And Morrison? He was my boss. 43 years old, balding, with a sharp suit that couldn't hide his sharper ego. He loved control more than competence, and he measured loyalty by how much you sacrificed without complaint. Yes, that day. Thanksgiving week. He fired me for taking one single day I had earned 500 times over. One day to sit with friends, eat pumpkin pie, and laugh without checking my phone every 10 minutes. One day to feel like a normal person instead of a machine programmed for productivity. Morrison didn't just fire me quietly in his office. He made it a spectacle. He wanted everyone to see what happened when you dared to prioritize yourself. He wanted to send a message. The message was clear. No one is irreplaceable, especially not someone who forgets their place. But here's what Morrison didn't know. Hours before I walked into that office to collect my things, I had been invited to a private leadership dinner by someone from Global Parent Corporation. I thought it was a mistake. I almost didn't go. I almost deleted the email thinking it was sent to the wrong Emma Collins. But I went. And that decision changed everything. Because the woman sitting across from me that night wasn't just any executive. She was about to become Morrison's boss. His boss's boss, actually. And she had already decided I was impressive. 5 years earlier, I shook Morrison's hand on my first day at Harmon Freight Solutions. The office smelled like new carpet and ambition. Morrison smiled wide and said the company was like a family. We take care of our own here, Emma, he said warmly. I believed him. I had nothing but hope, student loans, and a degree that hadn't opened as many doors as I'd been promised. I needed this job desperately. So I worked harder than necessary. I stayed late without being asked. I fixed problems before they became emergencies. I learned every system, every shortcut, every person's role so I could step in when needed. Morrison rewarded attendance like it was oxygen. He praised people who showed up no matter what. So I never missed. Not once. Birthdays came and went. Snow piled up outside, but I still drove in. I caught colds and worked through them with tissues stuffed in my desk drawer. Holidays were just another day on the calendar. My perfect attendance became my identity. My reliability became my value. Or so I thought. I became the office ghost who fixed everything. Late shipments? I tracked them down. Missing inventory? I found it. Billing errors caused by other people's mistakes? I corrected them quietly, efficiently, without fanfare. I didn't ask for applause. I didn't need recognition. I just wanted to be good at my job. I wanted to prove I belonged. But Morrison played favorites constantly. If you made noise, you mattered. If you laughed loud at his jokes, you got noticed. If you worked silently in the background, you became invisible. I was invisible. The people who took credit for my work got promoted. The ones who stayed late because they wasted time during the day got praised for dedication. Meanwhile, I kept the entire logistics department running smoothly, and nobody seemed to notice. Except once. Once, I made the mistake of correcting Morrison on a shipping route error. I did it respectfully, with data and proof. He was about to approve a decision that would have cost the company thousands. I thought I was helping. His face went cold. The air in the room shifted. He didn't thank me. He just nodded stiffly and dismissed me. After that, everything changed. He never forgave me for being right. 3 months before Thanksgiving, I finally asked for a day off. Just one day. I'd like to request Thanksgiving off, please, I said, standing in Morrison's office doorway. He looked up from his computer slowly, like I'd just asked him to donate a kidney. Thanksgiving, he repeated, as if the word itself was foreign. Yes. Just that Thursday. I haven't taken a day off since I started, and I'd really like to spend it with friends. He blinked. Once. Twice. Then returned to his screen without answering. I'll think about it, he muttered. I waited for a response that never came. Weeks passed. I asked again. He waved me off. We'll see how the schedule looks, he said dismissively. But I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't going to approve it. He wanted me to know that my loyalty meant nothing compared to his control. So I made the decision anyway. I submitted the request formally through HR. It was approved automatically since I had over 200 unused vacation hours. Morrison said nothing. But I felt the shift. He started watching me differently. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, he began criticizing my work publicly. Tiny mistakes were suddenly catastrophic. A missed email became a failure of communication. A delayed update became negligence. Morrison exaggerated everything I did wrong and minimized everything I did right. He did it in meetings. In front of coworkers. People who used to smile at me started avoiding eye contact. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this was. A setup. He was building a case. Creating a narrative. Laying groundwork for something bigger. Jennifer from HR pulled me aside one afternoon. Emma, maybe you should consider transferring to another department, she said quietly, glancing over her shoulder. Why? I asked, though I already knew. Because Morrison's making it difficult for you. And it's only going to get worse. I appreciated her concern, but I declined. Not out of stubbornness. Out of strategy. If Morrison wanted to make an example of me, I'd let him. Let him show everyone exactly who he was. Let him perform his little power play in full view. Because something told me the universe was watching. And the universe has a funny way of keeping score. 2 nights before Thanksgiving, I received an email that seemed completely out of place. The subject line read: Leadership Dinner Invitation, Global Parent Corp Executive Board. I stared at it, confused. Global Parent Corp was the massive corporation that owned Harman Freight Solutions, along with a dozen other companies. I wasn't an executive. I wasn't even a manager. Why would they invite me? I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam or sent to the wrong Emma Collins. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was formal, polite, and very real. It invited me to a small leadership dinner where senior executives would be discussing crisis management and operational efficiency. Attendees were selected based on performance metrics and peer recommendations. Someone had recommended me. I had no idea who. The dinner was in 2 days, the night before Thanksgiving. I hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if I showed up and embarrassed myself? But something inside me whispered, go. So I did. I wore my best outfit, drove to the upscale restaurant downtown, and walked in with my heart pounding. The restaurant was elegant. Soft lighting. Leather booths. Quiet conversations. I gave my name at the host stand, and they led me to a private room in the back. 8 people sat around a large table. I recognized none of them. A woman at the head of the table stood and smiled warmly. You must be Emma Collins, she said, extending her hand. I'm Margot Sinclair. Thank you for joining us. Margot Sinclair. The name didn't mean anything to me yet, but her presence commanded the room. She was in her early 50s, sharp-eyed, confident, and kind in a way that felt genuine. We sat. Dinner was served. Conversation flowed easily. Margot asked thoughtful questions about logistics, problem-solving, and how we handled crises under pressure. At one point, she presented a mock scenario, a shipment delayed, a client furious, and limited options. She asked how I'd handle it. I answered honestly, explaining how I'd prioritize communication, explore alternative routes, and keep everyone informed without making promises I couldn't keep. Margot's eyes lit up. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, she said. I didn't know what she meant. But I felt something shift. That dinner wasn't a mistake. It was an opportunity one didn't know I'd been given. Thanksgiving Day arrived. I celebrated with friends at a cozy apartment filled with laughter, good food, and warmth I hadn't felt in months. We ate too much pumpkin pie. We told stories. We turned off our phones and just existed. For the first time in years, I felt human. Not a productivity machine. Not invisible. Just me. I didn't think about work. I didn't think about Morrison. I didn't think about what Monday would bring. I should have. Because Monday morning, Morrison turned my absence into a weapon. I walked into the office to find him waiting. Arms crossed. Smirk firmly in place. And that's when Chapter 1 happened. He fired me in front of everyone. Made it loud. Made it public. Made it hurt. He wanted humiliation. He wanted power. He wanted me broken. What he didn't know was that I had already sat at a table with someone who outranked him by a universe. Someone who had seen my competence before he weaponized my absence. And the clock on his arrogance had already started ticking down. I cleared my desk in silence. 5 years of work reduced to a cardboard box. Photos. A coffee mug. A plant I'd kept alive longer than most of my friendships. Coworkers avoided my eyes. Some looked guilty. Others looked relieved it wasn't them. Morrison stood by his office door, arms still crossed, watching me like a king watching a peasant leave his kingdom. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't make a scene. I just picked up my box and walked out. The elevator ride down felt surreal. The lobby doors opened to cold November air. I stood on the sidewalk, holding everything I'd earned in 5 years, and realized something. I wasn't devastated. I was free. Morrison thought he'd ended my career. He thought I'd spiral into panic, scrambling for another job, desperate and humiliated. He had no idea that destiny had already rearranged the board. And I was about to be moved into a position he couldn't even see. Rumors started swirling within days. Global Parent Corp had announced a major leadership restructure. A new CEO had been appointed. Someone aggressive. Someone known for efficiency and accountability. Someone who didn't tolerate incompetence. No one at Harman Freight Solutions knew who it was yet. Morrison held meetings acting unbothered. "Corporate changes don't affect us," he said confidently. "We run a tight ship here. They'll see that." But whispers spread. Employees checked LinkedIn obsessively. Someone said the new CEO was a woman. Someone else said she'd already fired 3 executives at another subsidiary for poor performance. Morrison laughed it off. "Let them come," he said. "I've been here 10 years. I know how to play the game." Arrogance dripped from every word. Meanwhile, I sat at home, unemployment paperwork spread across my kitchen table, wondering what came next. Then my phone buzzed. An email. From Margot Sinclair. "Emma, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to follow up from our dinner and discuss an exciting opportunity. Would you be available for a call this week?" I stared at the email for a full minute. Margot Sinclair. The woman from the leadership dinner. The woman who'd been so impressed by my crisis handling scenarios. I replied immediately. "Yes, absolutely. I'm available anytime." We scheduled a call for the next morning. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind raced with possibilities. What kind of opportunity? Why me? The call came at 9 a.m. sharp. Margot's voice was warm but professional. "Emma, I'll get straight to the point. I've recently been appointed CEO of Global Parent Corporation. I'm restructuring several subsidiaries, including Harman Freight Solutions." My heart stopped. Harman Freight Solutions. My old company. Morrison's company. As part of that process, Margot continued, "I've been reviewing employee performance records. Yours stood out significantly. 5 years of perfect attendance, consistent problem solving, and 0 disciplinary issues. Then I noticed your termination last week." She paused. "On questionable grounds, I might add." I didn't know what to say. Margot kept going. "I'd like to offer you a position on my executive operations team. You'd be working directly with me on crisis management and efficiency improvements across all subsidiaries. Interested?" 14. I accepted before she finished the sentence. The salary was nearly double what I'd made at Harman Freight. The title was Executive Operations Coordinator. The respect was immediate. Margot sent over contracts, onboarding documents, and a start date 2 weeks away. I signed everything in a daze. This wasn't just a new job. This was vindication. This was proof that my work had mattered, even when it felt invisible. Morrison had no idea. None of them did. While he was probably bragging about firing me, I was being handed a role that put me in rooms he'd never access. Margot explained the restructure during our second call. Harman Freight Solutions has been underperforming for years. Leadership hasn't adapted. I'm dissolving several management positions and redistributing responsibilities based on competence, not tenure. I stayed quiet, but my heart raced. I'll be visiting the office next week for assessments. I'd like you there with me, Emma. I want your perspective on operations. She wanted me there. At my old office. With Morrison. Oh, this was going to be interesting. The day arrived. Margot and I walked into Harman Freight Solutions together. I wore a tailored suit Margot had recommended. Confidence armor. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw me. "Emma," she whispered. I smiled politely. "Hi, Rachel. Is Morrison available?" She stammered, confused, but buzzed us through. Morrison was in a meeting. We walked in unannounced. His face went pale when he saw me. Then red. Then something between shock and rage. "What is she doing here?" he demanded, pointing at me like I was trespassing. Margot stepped forward, calm and unbothered. "I'm Margot Sinclair, CEO of Global Parent Corporation. Emma is part of my executive operations team. We're here to assess departmental efficiency." The room went silent. Morrison's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound came out. Margot continued. "We'll need access to performance reports, scheduling records, and termination documentation. Particularly recent terminations." Her eyes locked onto Morrison. "I'm very interested in understanding your decision-making process." Morrison's confidence crumbled in real time. I stood there, silent, watching Karma arrive in a tailored suit and heels. The assessment took 3 days. Margot interviewed employees. Reviewed records. Asked pointed questions. Morrison tried to charm her. Tried to spin narratives. Tried to play the competent leader. But Margot wasn't buying it. She saw through every exaggeration, every excuse, every attempt to rewrite history. Employees who'd been silent for years suddenly found their voices. They talked about favoritism. About credit stealing. About Morrison's habit of publicly humiliating anyone who challenged him. Jennifer from HR provided documentation. My termination file was thin. No warnings. No write-ups. Just 1 day off after 5 years, and I was gone. Margot's face remained neutral, but I saw the tightness in her jaw. On the 3rd day, she called a meeting. Morrison sat at the head of the table, trying to project authority. Margot stood at the other end. After thorough review, she began, "It's clear that leadership here has prioritized control over competence. Efficiency has suffered. Morale is low. Talented employees have been undervalued or pushed out." Morrison shifted uncomfortably. "Effective immediately, several management positions are being dissolved. This includes yours, Morrison." The silence was deafening. Morrison's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and panic. "You can't do this," he stammered. "I've been here 10 years. I built this department." Margot's expression didn't change. "You built a department that runs despite you, not because of you. Your termination of Emma Collins was the final indicator of poor judgment. She was your most reliable employee, and you fired her for taking 1 earned day off." Morrison tried to argue. Tried to justify. Tried to blame. But Margot cut him off. "This isn't a negotiation. HR will handle your exit process. You have until end of business today to clear your office." She turned and walked out. Morrison sat frozen, the weight of his arrogance finally crushing him. I didn't gloat. Didn't smile. Didn't say a word. I just followed Margot out of the room, leaving Morrison to face the consequences of underestimating people he thought were beneath him. Karma didn't need my help. It had perfect timing on its own. Morrison's position wasn't just eliminated. It was erased. The entire management structure was redesigned. People who'd been overlooked for years were suddenly given opportunities. Employees who'd quietly kept things running were finally recognized. Harman Freight Solutions transformed under Margot's leadership. Efficiency improved. Morale lifted. The department I'd once silently held together was now thriving without the person who'd taken credit for it. Morrison tried reaching out. Emails. LinkedIn messages. Attempting to explain, to apologize, to salvage something. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He'd shown me exactly who he was. And the universe had shown him exactly what happens when arrogance meets accountability. Meanwhile, my new role was everything I'd hoped work could be. Margot valued my input. Respected my ideas. Gave me challenges that stretched my abilities. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't a machine. I was seen. Appreciated. Trusted. And it felt like breathing for the first time in years. 6 months later, I sat in Margot's office reviewing quarterly reports. Harman Freight Solutions was now one of the top-performing subsidiaries. Efficiency was up 30%. Employee retention had improved dramatically. Margot looked up from her laptop and smiled. "You know, Emma, I almost didn't invite you to that dinner. Your name came up during a random performance audit. I saw your record and thought it was too good to be true. Perfect attendance. Consistent results. Zero complaints. I wanted to meet the person behind those numbers." I blinked, surprised. I had no idea. "Most people don't realize when they're being noticed by the right people," she said. "Morrison saw your reliability as weakness. I saw it as strength. He saw your silence as submission. I saw it as professionalism. The difference between us is that I know competence doesn't need to be loud." Her words settled over me like validation I didn't know I needed. Morrison had fired me thinking I'd disappear into struggle and obscurity. Instead, timing had placed me at a table with the one person who would eventually hold his fate in her hands. I ran into Morrison once, months later, at a coffee shop downtown. He was in line ahead of me, looking smaller somehow. Older. Tired. He saw me and froze. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he cleared his throat. "Emma." "Hey." "Hi, Morrison," I replied evenly. I heard you're doing well," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Working with Margot Sinclair. That's impressive." "Thanks." Silence hung between us. He shifted his weight. "Look, I know I made some mistakes. I was under a lot of pressure back then. I didn't handle things well. I didn't owe him forgiveness. Didn't owe him closure. But I also didn't need to carry anger. I hope you've learned from it," I said simply. He nodded, looking relieved and ashamed at once. "I have. Trust me, I have." We paid for our drinks and left in opposite directions. I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel vindicated. I just felt free. Free from needing his approval. Free from the weight of being undervalued. Free to build something better. People ask me now if I planned it. If I knew Morrison would fall and I'd rise. The truth? No. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't plot his downfall. I just kept working. Kept showing up. Kept doing my best even when no one seemed to notice. And somewhere in that consistency, the right person did notice. Margot saw what Morrison refused to see. She valued what he dismissed. She respected what he exploited. The dinner invitation wasn't random luck. It was the result of years of quiet excellence finally being recognized by someone who understood its worth. Morrison's firing wasn't my revenge. It was the natural consequence of his own arrogance. He built his downfall brick by brick with every employee he undervalued, every person he humiliated, every moment he chose control over competence. I was just the final example that made it impossible to ignore. Now, I lead training sessions for new hires across all Global Parent Corp subsidiaries. I teach them about crisis management, operational efficiency, and something Margot insists I include, the importance of recognizing quiet competence. The loudest person in the room isn't always the most valuable, I tell them. Sometimes the person holding everything together is the one no one notices until they're gone. I see younger versions of myself in these rooms. People working hard, staying late, doing more than required, hoping someone will see. I make sure they know I see them. I make sure they know their work matters. Because I remember what it felt like to be invisible. To give everything and receive nothing. To be loyal to people who saw that loyalty as weakness. I won't let that happen on my watch. Last month, Margot promoted me again. Senior Director of Operations. A title I never imagined holding. A salary that lets me breathe without constantly checking my bank account. Respect that doesn't require me to be loud or aggressive or constantly proving myself. I moved into a bigger apartment. One with actual sunlight and a kitchen table where I can sit without feeling cramped. I take days off now. Without guilt. Without fear. I spend weekends with friends. I travel. I rest. I exist as a full human being, not just a worker. And every Thanksgiving, I make sure to celebrate. Really celebrate. Because that one day I took 5 years ago, the day Morrison weaponized against me, that day changed everything. It revealed who he really was. And it opened a door I didn't even know existed. If you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, if you're the person working harder than everyone else, staying later, fixing problems quietly, and wondering why no one notices, I want you to hear this. Your work matters. Your consistency matters. Your quiet excellence matters. Not everyone will see it. Some people, like Morrison, will exploit it. They'll take your loyalty for granted. They'll punish you for having boundaries. They'll make you feel small for wanting basic respect. But the right people will see. The Margaux of the world exist. They're looking for people like you. People who don't need to be loud to be valuable. People who show up, do the work, and make everything better just by being there. Don't break yourself trying to prove your worth to people determined not to see it. Don't sacrifice everything for leaders who see sacrifice as weakness. Work smart. Stay excellent. And trust that the right opportunity will find you when the timing is perfect. Morrison fired me thinking he'd ended my story. He thought I'd vanish into struggle, desperate and forgotten. He thought that moment of public humiliation would be my legacy. He was wrong. That firing wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. The universe had already set things in motion. Margaux had already noticed me. The opportunity had already arrived. Morrison just gave me the push I needed to walk through a door I didn't know was open. His arrogance collided with my quiet competence, and only one of us survived the impact. Not because I fought back. Not because I plotted revenge. But because I kept being excellent even when no one was watching. And eventually, the right person was. So if you ever find yourself breaking your back for someone who enjoys watching you bend, stop trying to bend straighter. Stand quietly. Work smart. Protect your peace. And when it's time to rise, rise so far they become nothing more than a footnote in your success story. That's not revenge. That's just destiny correcting arrogance with perfect timing. This story teaches us that integrity is the hallmark of life. Love and respect keeps the workspace moving forward. Have you ever watched someone's true character get exposed by a tyrant boss? Share your story in the comment below.